only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
You're now about to witness the truth.
it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Thursday, March 30th, 2017. Thanks you so much for joining us. Actually, you can bring it down just a little bit for me. We're here, and I'm actually in studio today with Professor Matt Sienkiewicz of Boston College. He'll be joining me to discuss all the issues that's going on. Matt, how's it going?
Oh, I'm doing all right, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, you could join the conversation, 857-600-0518. So we're going to start light tonight. We have a lot of stories to talk about, but we're going to start with something actually, I think it's kind of hilarious. It turns out a reporter, and I'm going to pull up her name.
Ashley Feinberg.
Huh?
Ashley Feinberg?
Ashley Feinberg.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, you've already
That's why you brought me here.
That's
right?
why you're here. So Ashley Feinberg found, we believe,
She
it's
believes,
pretty
and it's
conclusive
pretty
that this is the
compelling.
account of FBI, the Twitter account of FBI Director James Comey. It's not so much that she just found the account, but let's be real for a second. Everybody has searched for somebody online.
Guilty.
Guilty. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's a big deal. I
No.
think everybody does it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Some people go into the level of cyber stalking and not stalking in the horrible sense, but in the sense of
Stalking in the
really
lurking in the
digging,
shadows.
cyber sleuthing,
Yeah.
right? Sleuthing to find a person. If you have ever wanted to know how to find somebody, Ashley did a master's clinic on how to find somebody on social media. And she found FBI Director James Comey. And I think it was a brilliant piece of investigation. So we just kind of want to go through that first. We'll talk about Michael Flynn. He is seeking immunity for a chance to testify. That's obviously major breaking news. We're going to get to that. Devon Nunes. So much to say about how intelligent this guy is not. We'll be discussing that along with Donald Trump going to war, literally going to war with his own party, with the Freedom Caucus. Some of his biggest supporters probably in the election. He's going to war with them. So we're going to cover all that. And of course, you could join the conversation. We'll pull your comments from the chat room. We have the chat room going behind us, 857-600-0518. Let's start with James Comey. So last night, Jim Comey was at an Intelligence National Security Alliance leadership dinner, and he said really about two sentences.
Yeah.
And this was enough for this journalist to track down his Twitter account. He said, "I care deeply about privacy. I treasure it. I have an Instagram account with 9 followers. Nobody's getting in. They're all immediate relatives and one daughter's serious boyfriend. Must be serious."
Yeah, no, I'm glad that he set the bar somewhere, right? That's
Right.
great.
"I let them in because they're serious enough. I don't want anybody looking at my photos. I treasure my privacy and security on the internet. My job is public safety." So basically, all he said was, "I'm on Instagram. I'm connected to my family, and I have 9 followers."
9 followers.
So Ashley Feinberg of Gizmodo and David, if you would share the link inside of the chat room, we want to make sure everyone gets a chance to go look at the article for themselves. She took those 2 sentences and ran with it. So the first thing she did was she pulled up, and you can bring it up on the screen. She pulled up, she found his son's Instagram account. And by finding the son's Instagram account, she requested a follow, right? Permission to follow. I don't really do Instagram that much. And what you see on your screen here is after requesting to follow James Comey's son, it popped up with the recommendations of who also she should follow, other suggestions. This is algorithm based.
Smart stuff.
This is right. This is the one. Go ahead and switch back to camera 2 1. This is the one step that I had never thought of.
Right.
Like if I'm looking for somebody, I'm trying to stalk somebody, to actually go get someone related to them and see if they pop up in the suggestions.
Yeah, no, I think it's at least we know that James Comey can be involved in a competent investigation. got evidence of that here.
Not led by him.
No, not led by him, but he can be part of it.
He can
Right?
be a part.
His presence does not destroy the ability to investigate. So,
All right.
we've proven that. No, very very clever. I've found myself very interested in online forensics, and I've seen similar tricks, but I wouldn't think that Instagram would be so dumb as to reveal all of the. I mean, if you're keeping your account private,
right?
Then you would think that would include
that-
not revealing your followers through such an easy trick. But
That would be so. Yeah, that makes sense. So if I'm trying to remain private, then don't include me in your algorithm.
yeah, right. Just ignore me, right?
Right.
But
one line, like less than one line
corporations
of
don't
code.
like this, though, right? The entire internet business is based on the revelation of your personal information.
Yeah.
First the collection and then the revelation. So yeah, of course it doesn't. However, in this case, at the very least, we all benefited, right?
Yeah.
We all at least
Yeah.
are enjoying the outcome. So she does that, and then what? Do you remember the next steps?
So after that, she found James Comey's son through Kenyon College Twitter account, right? So they connected to his son. The son connected to these mysterious accounts that really are all blank images, but she recognized the name in one, and she took the name. You can pull it back up on the screen. Reinhold.
Niebuhr. Right.
Okay, there you go. So this is the account. It was private and it had 9 followers. So this was her trail. Because he said 9 followers, there's the 9 followers. And she took that to Twitter to see if she could find someone similar on Twitter. And this is what she found. She got to Twitter and found Reinhold Niebuhr with 1 follower. And basically it's an open account, so she was able to search through all of his likes. He only has 39 likes. He's following 27 people. And so she believes that based on what he liked and
The
based
likes
on...
are so funny if it is James Comey.
Yeah,
Comey.
yeah. We're going to pull
have
up the like.
Well, first thing, so he named it, if this is in fact his account,
Right.
after a theologian that he wrote a dissertation about.
Exactly.
So like he wants to be found, right? Like if you want to make a fake account, you pick a random name and you
Right.
don't only like tweets about yourself.
Exactly.
Right,
So this
like-
this is why it's pretty. At the end, you'll see why I agree this is 100% his account.
Yeah.
But we were talking about this before the show. I really expect the FBI director to be a little more.
A little better at this.
You know, I would think he would know a few more tricks to disguise his presence online.
You would think so. You think you would not use a name that relates to your life in any way,
Right.
Just a
Random name.
a random
Just
pseudonym.
use a random name generator.
Two, I mean, if I were going to make a fake, if I were James Comey and I was making a fake account, I would also just make a real account and be boring with it.
Yeah.
Right, and this is my account here, right? And you just like put like
Or professional business
professional
account.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then you keep this separately, and then we can go through his likes.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pull up. Let's see what's next on the list. So these are the tweets that he liked. Donald Trump assembling the richest administration in modern history. He likes a couple from Washington Post, from the New York Times. A couple about the FBI's activities directly. In the bottom left-hand corner, FBI this week, the internet and child sex tourism. The FBI says the growth in internet web streaming is, so he's liking his own content.
He's just Ben. He's just a random FBI fan, right? Aren't there
Right.
millions of people out there who just like all the FBI tweets?
Yeah, no,
There's not. There's not.
Not for real.
There's only one FBI fan, and he runs the FBI.
But what's funny about this is not only what he likes. I mean, and this is absolutely a non-story, other than the fact that it's hilarious.
Well,
Like-
and that there's good evidence Ashley Feinberg ought to be running the FBI. But yeah,
she did this, and this was last night.
it's cool
conference.
stuff. It's honest entertainment.
And she's giving you, so this is working on 2 levels. She's giving you the strategy that you need to use for you to successfully track down the person that you wanted to connect with on social media. So for all of you people who are low-key stalking people, go to this article by Ashley Feinberg over at Gizmodo and take this master clinic on how to find someone who should probably be the most reclusive or the most difficult to find. And turns out she found him in a matter of an hour.
If in fact he doesn't want to be found, which clearly he didn't, he covered enough. But that's the other sort of question. I mean, why keep it secret? Why mention it if it is secret? Why not have a non-secret one that could cover it? Why make it so? I mean, I guess part of this is if you're of a somewhat older generation, right? And I might also be of this older generation. I would never assume that people would be sort of triangulating my social media, right? So this is not
Right.
something that would occur to him.
Right.
That said, all we've been hearing about him doing investigations about new media.
Yeah.
Right? That's all we hear over. And it's not like he just does, tobacco smuggling or something, right? Like he's been investigating emails, and I would suspect you'd think he would have a little more literacy in that area, but it is somewhat new. And look, I was surprised that I wasn't surprised this could be done. I was surprised with the sort of the elegance
ease
of her solution.
Oh,
you know?
she was good. She did a really great job on tracking this down, on tracking them down. And it was almost unnecessarily easy for her to actually do this. I mean, granted, Instagram's algorithm made the ultimate connection that helped her find them, but the basic research that she did, probably, I said in an hour, but this probably took her 20 minutes to track them down. Let's go to the next few images so you can kind of see, and we'll wrap this one up. This is the funniest tweet that he liked.
What's going on
This
here?
is from some random dude, Jackie Barker. He said, okay, where do I know the FBI guy from? All right, this is a tweet that he liked. Here's the reality. Like, if you're on Twitter, you realize there's no way he found that tweet unless he searched for FBI guy.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out who actually, I mean, clearly he talks like this, but if I was to search for someone talking about me, I would put in black, progressive, something, right? Something,
you
but
would.
who puts in guy? The word guy kind of throws me off, though.
Guy is unusual. Yeah, guy. But can we go back to the image? The guy is like shirtless and ripped, right?
Yeah.
Which might not be him, obviously. It looks to me, this isn't what it is, I suppose. But you ever get like a like on like an old tweet from like 2 years ago?
And you're like, yeah, where the hell did this come from?
Or whatever.
Yeah,
Like it's a spam like.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like that.
A spam bot.
Spam like, but then he is responding, right? So something.
I mean, but he's Jim Comey is sitting around somewhere, probably not during the day. I'm not going to say he does this at work. He's doing this at home,
okay,
right? We're gonna give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But he's searching Twitter for FBI guy because he assumes
I see what you're saying.
that's what
He's like,
someone is going.
I wasn't really putting that together. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So he. Oh wow, that. Okay, now I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like who thinks?
I didn't. Okay, so you are saying that he just must constantly be putting FBI guy in quotes in the Twitter
search engine to find out who's talking about that FBI guy.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. That.
Who talks like
I mean,
that,
he could, or that's assuming that he is not spending hours of this. He could just be putting an FBI and sorting through like thousands of tweets.
It's too many to sort through. For him to only have like 39.
How many of them are that hot? Just saying, it depends on what your filtering is.
But
right?
the moral of the story is actually, so after the article came out today, this is what happened. Pull it up on the screen. He locked his Twitter account.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I think this is the FBI director's Twitter account.
It seems pretty apparent. You think you might close the account and start a new one with a less obvious name and pass. But although I guess if a new account comes on, it just he'd have to like be really patient in following his daughter's
though.
serious boyfriend.
Here are the rules. If you don't want to be found online, don't connect with anyone that you know. Don't connect to anything about your name in the past or anything remotely connected
Or
to you.
lock your
Don't like your own don't like your own tweets, right?
Well, if he just locked his account, and there's no reason not to lock his account because he's not tweeting anything that he wants to be seen publicly.
Right.
Right. So what reason would you have to not lock it, but for not either just being so complacent and figuring who's going to go chasing this down, and they couldn't get it, or B, sort of not caring.
Yeah.
I mean, why keep it open?
He probably, why have it open in the first place?
Yeah. What's the point?
Yeah.
Unless I'm telling you, he wanted to be caught. And the shirtless man could be the key to it all.
All right, folks. So we just want to start with something. We talk about so many serious things on the show. Don't forgive me. This is my show. We'll talk about whatever the hell I want to talk about. Anyway, let's take the caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and/or question?
Hey, Ben, it's me, Jared, from Downingtown, PA. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Jared. How's it going?
There's too much news this week. There's way too much news.
Yeah.
You got Brexit, you got Flynn, you got the climate thing.
A lot of climate stories, yeah.
You got 1,000 dead in Mosul, civilians, bombing campaign. I don't even know where to start.
Don't try to run it all down, man. If you try to run it all down in one thought, it will mess your head up. I mean, because you're forgetting Yemen, you're forgetting Flint water crisis. I mean, if you really try to list all the things that are crazy that are happening in one phone call, you're going to have an aneurysm. So just pick one and tell me what's on your mind.
Well, how about one that isn't being really talked about that much? What about Trump recently repealed a 2014 Obama executive order on LGBT federal contractors, and this comes on the same day that North Carolina votes on a so-called repeal of HB 2, which isn't a repeal at all. That maintains the ban for. It's complicated, but let me sum it up for you. Pretty much this. In North Carolina,
well, actually,
you can be fired for
Jared,
being
let's do it like this, Jared.
Trans.
Jared, because we're going to actually cover that story. What's the question that you have about that story? Or what's your main comment? Because I'm going to give them all the details.
Is the situation for LGBT rights and basically minority rights in general worse now than they were 20 years ago? And I'll let you take that call off the air.
Okay, thanks, man. Thanks for the call. So, Max, start a new clip right here. To what the caller is speaking about. So there's a lot happening on the LGBTQ front. A lot that we're going to have to cover on an ongoing basis. But just today, or actually last night, two major issues have popped up. In North Carolina, there's this so-called repeal of HB 2. The state legislature is trying to regain some of their losses. I mean, there was a tremendous economic loss, almost like economic sanctions put on from corporate America onto North Carolina. They lost a lot of money, and so they claim to have repealed. What they've repealed, the gap that is making a lot of people upset is that they're still not allowing local municipalities to make any type of protections, to pass any type of protections for the LGBTQ community over and above what the state does. So in a way, this so-called repeal is not really effective. It's really kind of a smoke and mirror game for them to try to get some good positive PR. That on top of Donald Trump taking the LGBTQ questions out of the census that's coming up. Right. So it really is a concerted effort, movement against the LGBT gains, the gains that have been made. And I 100% believe this is backed, at least on the executive level. It's being pushed by people like Reince Priebus, but most specifically the Vice President, Mike Pence. It would seem so. You know, he is the resident evangelical. What do you think about those?
Well, I mean, Trump, to try to act as though there's some sort of coherent philosophy is really difficult. But in terms of his rhetoric regarding LGBTQ, he was, for a Republican, pretty good, right? Yeah. Like pretty willing to at least acknowledge the existence of the community and that it had needs. And then he goes and picks Mike Pence, right, who has just this horrific career, well documented, right. So everybody who is telling you that Trump, no, he'll be progressive in some way on this, right? No. Don't tell me, show me, right? And he showed you by picking Mike Pence, even almost in the face of his daughter, and his son-in-law. Who, whatever they are, whatever the things we don't like about them, they intentionally try to block an executive order from Donald Trump that was really a draconian crackdown on LGBTQ rights. They block that, but Mike Pence is in the background steadily pushing his hyper-religious anti-LGBTQ agenda. And now, you know, he really is gaining some traction. Well, and he's competent, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he has a history of competence. I mean, competence in doing things that I
horrible things
don't want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But as opposed to Trump, who has a no record or record thus far,
doesn't even know how the government works.
Competence, right? If you're Trump, you don't really care about these issues. When Pence comes to you, at least you know if he says he's going to do something, it's actually going to get done. Whereas if you say you're going to repeal Obamacare, well, that's not going to happen. You can't get that through. If you say you're going to put in a ban for whatever, Muslim travel ban, whatever, you can't get that through. Pence comes to you,
He said, we can do this.
He says we can do this. And
Yeah.
you know what? He may well be able to, right? He's a guy who knows how to do it. If you're just looking for things to check off and you truly don't care, right? You truly do not have what does he care? I mean, it's very hard to believe he has an authentic, sincere sympathy or desire to improve the lives of LGBT. He just wants to get things done. He'll flip back. It's no
On any
problem.
issue.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
So to the caller's question of whether or not the LGBTQ community is in a worse position, I can't answer that, right? I would really have to yield to voices and leaders of the LGBTQ community. I would say that if Mike Pence has his way, it would be worse for the LGBTQ community going forward than it was 20 years ago. There's this level of religious zealotry that is carried over in almost everything that Mike Pence does. Even with the conversation that's online today about how he will not have dinner with any woman that's not his wife by himself, or won't be in a room with a woman by himself if it's not his wife, and doesn't go to any events that serves alcohol. And, you know, on some level, being a very traditional guy myself, on some level, I get it.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't. It's like, but the way, when you add that on top of what he's trying to do in the LGBTQ community, it's its own type of Sharia law to me. It's its own type of, you know, women shouldn't be in public without, without their brother or their father, you know, that type of thing. It's an American version of Sharia law.
Yeah, I mean that's a tricky one. I also I am part of a traditional religious community. We in Judaism we have a word for what he's describing with not being alone in the room with a woman. It's called yichud. It's not being together in a space in which something could happen, right? And it's meant to be put in as a control so as to not put yourself in a position, right? The thought is more like most people take it as to be more, oh, don't work late into the night with your female colleague and this sort of thing. In terms of like a business dinner or something like that,
That won't even go to lunch.
That's a pretty extreme version. Well, lunch is this is in a public space. He won't. He just
he will not have lunch.
Then no.
It's next level. It's like
that's another level.
It's like no. Me personally, no. I'm not. There's no reason for me to be somewhere with someone who's not my wife, a woman that's not my wife, at 11 o'clock at night,
behind closed doors.
You know, behind closed. You know, there's but a business lunch.
No, that I'm not familiar with. I want to take it back.
That's absurd.
Like, no. If the story is if he's going to be alone with a female colleague, he'd like to keep the door open.
Right.
Like, I think that's actually a good policy.
That's not dumb. That's actually smart, all things considered.
Yeah, because you might not trust yourself. No, but if you're talking about you're in a public space and the woman needs to discuss business matters with you, you need to talk to her.
Or even if like, you know, and then it goes over to the conversation, can men, and this is all in context of Mike Pence's religious ideology, like can men be friends with women? And there's this strand in conservative Christianity that really is thou dost protest too much on everything. Yeah. Right. It's like if you don't trust yourself, then these are the types of things that you have to do. If you're not, if you feel like you're going that easily tempted, then these are the things that you have to do. If you feel like the only use that woman has for you is not a professional one, but a sexual one, that's a problem on you.
Oh yeah, that's a huge problem. Yeah. If you're talking about situations in which you are many steps away from having a problem, right? You got to go. You got to leave the house, leave the room, go to the hotel, whatever. Right? You're talking about having dinner with somebody. It's hard to put it this way. If somebody has that religious stance, that's their business. That's fine. Yeah. But you can't be vice president.
Right.
Because part of the job, we have female senators, to interact with women, congressmen, and cabinet members, and whatever.
Exactly. That's the most important thing right there, is like and I'm trying to think who said this. I think it was Jamila Lemieux on Twitter. She was like, now it makes sense why his cabinet is just so many men and few women in there. Like if you think about the context where Mike Pence is the one who's organizing this stuff behind the background, if he doesn't feel comfortable around women, then what does that do? You know, he gets to make these grandiose statements of, oh, I'm religiously pious enough to not have dinner with women, but yet you let that translate into not having women in your cabinet, not having women in significant positions.
Have dinner with them, you can't have them in the cabinet.
Right, you don't even know them.
Part of the deal. Yeah, no, I mean, we get our freedoms mixed up here a lot, right? You have the freedom of religion. You don't have the freedom to have whatever job you want despite your religion.
Right.
I cannot be a pork food taster because I won't put pork in my mouth, right? Like it's my freedom of religion. But if I took that job, you would fire me.
You're not going to go and say, listen, give me this job.
Give me the
I
bacon
can't
rinds
eat
job.
pork. I won't eat pork, but I'm going to take this. Yeah.
It's part of the job. No, I think, and depending on how far he takes us, to brag about it. Yeah. But if he honestly cannot be in I'll say intimate, but I just mean in sort of like in-depth conversation with a woman, then that's disqualifying.
Yeah,
it's disqualifying. Should have been disqualifying 50
and
years
then
ago.
like even alcohol, right? He's like he won't go to events that serves alcohol. How are you in Washington D.C.?
Well, no, and that's the part that does sort of. It's not real Sharia. It's the cartoon version of Sharia that like anti-Sharia people in the United States.
Yeah.
They will say that he's trying to police. People who are sort of talk about creeping Sharia sort of nonsense will say they're trying to change other people's lives, right? Not just their own.
Right.
This seems to me, if you're the vice president, you have the ability. Are you trying to ban alcohol from other people's
you're
lives?
Every event that you go to, you're either you're either lying or you're either exaggerating, right? Because this is like something that shouldn't even came up, right?
You're displaying it.
So you're showing off. You're showing off your piety, right? So he's either forcing environments to not serve alcohol because he's there, or he's there and they serve alcohol. I don't know what's that, but you're right. It really is, to me, in a way, it's a caricature of and a dangerous one, a dangerous caricature
of religion,
of religion trying to force other people to conform to your standards. And then, it's just, it really shapes when you put it in context and line up who he is and the policies that he's trying to institute, the attack on the LGBTQ community, the lack of representation of women inside of the Trump administration. It really paints a picture of religious zealotry that may not be equal to that of Saudi Arabia, but it definitely has that type of overtone. And it's amazing to me that we're terrified of Sharia law, but we tolerate the same type of behaviors from Christian zealotry here in the United States. And again, and I can speak to this because I come from an extremely conservative Christian background, and the main people who are involved in the people preaching the loudest about the LGBTQ community are sometimes the ones who are right there in the LGBTQ community. They just don't want to admit it. The people who are, and you see this over and over and over again. So I don't see it as a badge of honor for you to say, oh, I refuse to have a lunch with a woman. That just means that you don't see value in that woman for anything other than sex.
No, right. Especially, no, I can't.
That's insane.
No, and also it's a strange, so to the extent to which my religious observance is different from the people around me, that makes me a minority, and I understand that, and I grapple with that. This seems to be a refusal to admit that he is doing something that puts him in a minority, right? That it is not it's not a norm to be imposed on others. If in fact he is pressuring them not to have alcohol,
that's weird.
Right? If you are in the minority position, right, part of that is
just don't drink it.
Right. Here's
the thing.
Yeah.
Just don't drink the alcohol. Just don't have gay sex. Don't get gay married. Do you be as religiously conservative as you want to be, but stop trying to impose your expectations of your lifestyle onto someone else, especially when those are the people who can't even live up to the standards that they set for themselves.
We should boil it down somewhat to the level of politics, and I have I lived in the Midwest for 6 years or so, and I worked a little bit in organizing. And one thing that you always have to reckon with there is how well the church is organized in terms of particularly just voting and getting their people out, right? And so he is talking to a relatively, I believe, small group of people, but with a very relatively high, small group of people, I think, who don't drink alcohol.
Oh, okay, that group.
Yeah, it's relatively small.
Yes, it's small.
But one, it's a very devout group of people who are likely to get out and vote.
Yeah.
And two, they're people who are respected by sort of people who are more, a little more liberal, but sort of believe in the values. Right? There's particularly coming out of Indiana, right? That's a good way to get elected is to really cue that you're part of that community. Yeah. Right? At the national level, it seems ridiculous.
Laughable, right.
But, it takes 47% to get, elected president, or it did last time, right? So it's not necessarily a losing strategy.
Well, this is our vice president, guys. So long way to answer the question, but I think it paints a perfect picture of who Mike Pence really is and what he wants for America. He is one of the most extreme religious zealots in our lifetime that has held that office.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing to that question of 20 years. I, like you, I can't speak to that. What I can say is that this is real evidence that progress is not linear.
Yeah.
Right, and that goes for LGBT rights, that goes for other rights as well.
Absolutely.
Don't get complacent as part of the message, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how it compares to 20 years ago, but I know it's not a straight line
Definitely.
charging ahead.
Definitely. It has ebbed and flowed, and we're in a season now where, you know who Mike Pence is. I don't have to explain who his past is. And if you don't, you should definitely Google. So do your Googles so that you understand who the vice president is and where he stands and his extreme beliefs with regard to the LGBTQ community. All right, let's shift gears and talk about Michael Flynn. So Michael Flynn, and this was breaking news right before the show, Michael Flynn offers to testify in exchange for immunity. According to Wall Street Journal, Flynn told the FBI that he's willing to be interviewed in exchange of grant of immunity from prosecution. He's made the offer to the FBI, the House and Senate Intelligence Committees through his attorney. He's seeking immunity. What does that say? I mean, we can obviously fill in the gaps, right? The first thing I feel when someone goes after immunity, that means they've done something that they need immunity for which they need immunity. So this is a fascinating addition to this Russia narrative that actually puts meat on the bones, right? Where if you're a skeptic of what's happened, if you're a skeptic and you believe that this is all just kind of mainstream media fodder, the fact that he's volunteering in exchange for immunity actually puts some significant context to this story.
Yeah, so one, it certainly suggests that he's got something not to hide, but that he is potentially culpable for.
Yeah.
But two, it also suggests, if in fact he's granted immunity, that he has something on someone else, right?
Right.
This is not done out of kindness, right?
Right.
And
Absolutely.
especially, I don't think he's done much to earn sympathy over the past long period of time. So it still keeps us in the realm of speculation, of course. But we do, it seems like every time I talk to you, right, that we have
this story pops up.
Speculation just keeps it narrows a little bit, and it gets to the point now where it doesn't make a lot of sense if there's not something there. That doesn't mean we have Watergate. It doesn't mean we have direct smoking gun about Trump talking to the Russian hackers. But it really makes it so your speculation gets sort of more focused as the time goes on. It really does seem to be building.
Yeah, and so you said something key there, right? He's requesting immunity. If he gets immunity, it definitely signals that he has something that the FBI needs really on Trump, because you're not going to get immunity for lesser people.
He's pretty high up.
He's high up. And we sit here and try to figure out who could he give testimony on, who could he rat out essentially that they would exchange immunity for. I don't see anyone else in the Trump administration that is as high up as Flynn that they would exchange it for.
Right. It would seem like he's the fall guy, right? He already took the fall.
Yeah.
Right. So is there a fall guy left in between?
No.
I mean, it's worth noting that it's not as though a deal has been agreed to, and he's implying, by asking for immunity, he's implying he's got someone else to give up. It's hard to figure out who that could be, but for an executive level person.
I mean, they won't do it in exchange for Steve Bannon. They won't do it in exchange for Reince Priebus. They won't do it in exchange. I mean, they already have Manafort on whatever. They have enough on him. Jared Kushner. I don't think Jared Kushner is actually someone that they would exchange immunity for.
No, in this case, that wouldn't make a lot of sense. If only because just for all of his obvious level of unlikability, it does not approach Flynn, and Flynn is in a more powerful position. It would look like you would have to ask why they wanted Jared Kushner, right? You don't have to ask why they want Flynn.
Michael Flynn, exactly.
So, it doesn't make sense.
So the reality of it is that it quite literally could end up that he's not going to get it. Yeah, right. Sure. Because unless he has something significant, this is just him trying to find a way to stay out of jail himself.
Yeah. Right.
But it is definitely a twist in the narrative. There have been some signals over the past couple of weeks that suggested that this was coming. Yeah. And to see it kind of fully flesh itself out, you would think that the story would start dying a little.
nothing there.
But it's not dying now.
No, it is. I know you have a resistance to going down this full line of speculation.
Yeah, I do.
And that's look, skepticism is part of being a good liberal thinker, I think. So you need that. We don't want. It's very hard to stop your brain from going. What must he have? That said, it's already done incredible damage. Mm-hmm. Right, so even just the mistakes made thus far are hugely problematic, and it's pretty clear that Trump will be dealing with this at least the entire first year of his presidency and probably beyond.
It's not going away. If nothing else, you're right. I do have a lot of resistance to going down the Russia narrative, the Russia trope, mainly because there are enough mainstream voices who are pounding the hell out of the Russia drums so loud they don't need another voice added on top of it. But then two, it's so much of it has been pure speculation in the media. Definitely to a fault. And then three, even if everything plays out as described by the FBI so far, it definitely does not warrant the calls for war. There have been some Democratic congresspeople who have said that this is an act of war. And to me, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, there's nothing that the FBI has suggested or hinted that even if it's 100% true, that it warrants any language of war. It warrants a cyber hack in return, right? That's a reciprocal kind of the level of reciprocity that you would expect from this. But this has been my hesitation and my resistance to it is because so many people have gotten so hysterical over it. However, you can't allow that resistance to the hysteria make you ignore the fact that Michael Flynn is seeking immunity to give testimony. If there's something there and he gets immunity, then this is actually going to go right to Donald Trump's doorsteps. I don't see anyone else that they would exchange immunity for unless it landed right at the feet of Donald Trump.
No, and you're right. And this is a case in which the partisan implications of it might make people push past the things that are important, right?
Yeah.
To go straight to the sort of bellicosity and overwrought discussion of war. I mean, part of it does. I think there's been a frustration on the part of a wide swath of the American political elite with lack of response to Russian malfeasance, right? Russian aggression in Ukraine, the way in which Putin seems to deal with his opponents and these sorts of things, and just the idea of having
almost
a president
on a weekly basis, now.
Right? It's crazy, right? And the idea of having an American president who does not at least puff up his chest about that when he's puffing up his chest about all these other things is tremendously frustrating.
It doesn't
have anything to do with that.
So if we go back to 2012 debates, though, Barack Obama was Russia's not our enemy. Right. He was like, he told Mitt Romney, 1980s wants their foreign policy back. So, in a way, it's not problematic to have a president that wants to have a reset and a peaceful relationship with Russia. But it's entirely problematic to have someone who's willing to explain away every single thing that Russia does, that Vladimir Putin does, that really. Donald Trump has compounded this issue to make it bigger than what it probably ever had to be.
Well, it also,
and you have to take a step back and ask you do have to say, like, why? Why make Russia if there's nothing there, Donald? Why make it worse? But particularly his staff. I know he can't control Flynn. He couldn't control Sessions mess up. He can't control, but he himself is making it a bigger situation than it should be if he really believes that there's nothing there.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the narrative, sort of the way we talk about Russia, better to talk about this than to talk about the U.S. president buddying up to this ethno-nationalist mobster. Right? You think Pence has a bad record on LGBTQ rights.
Yeah.
Pence really believes the stuff. Putin doesn't, but he uses that left and right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm just saying the friendliness that Trump has with Russia, the problem, it's probably has very little to do with hacking, right? It has everything to do with the worst instincts of sort of failed machismo.
But
right?
we have
what's running.
So here's why I push back on that all the time is because we have consistently had relationships with with extremely problematic nations.
Yeah.
I mean,
sure.
if you want to, if you talk about the problems with Vladimir Putin, you got to talk about the problems with Saudi Arabia, right? With Russia, then Saudi Arabia, because I mean, who treats the LGBTQ community worse?
Right.
You know, it's kind of like, so like we have a history of having relationships with autocrats, with dictators, with brutal, I mean, just the worst of the worst. Yeah. And we have presidents who shake hands with them. They have dinner with them. They take photo ops. You had John McCain shaking hands with someone on Twitter, with a picture on Twitter, talking about their resistance to Vladimir Putin and his autocratic regime. And in the background, you have a picture of, right over his shoulder, you have a picture of John McCain shaking hands with the king of Saudi Arabia, right? So it's like, we've always had problematic relationships with people that, if we are sincere about our human rights positions, then we should not have a relationship with any of them. So that's why I push back against that.
I agree. The only
push back. Come on.
So this is true, but generally in those situations, we avoid talking about it. Mm-hmm. So, you know, when we...
but Donald Trump is just an idiot, though.
Well, that's the thing, though. It is, you know, so, you know, Hosni Mubarak was an awful dictator in every way. And we gave him tons of money, right? Like an absurd amount. I think the second most aid probably was going to Egypt. But at no point did we get up and say he's a good guy, right? At no point did we say he was a better leader than an American president. And so you're right? To pretend to virtue signal, right, that the U.S. only deals with upright democracies, that's nonsense. You're right. It's a point well taken. There is something about you
at least the farce.
You want to. Well, you know, it's like you know, hypocrisy can be aspirational. Right? Like it's the thing you want to be, right? So like we should say we only talk. One argument could be we should say we only want to talk with democracies because that's what the kind of place we want to be. We realize we can't. Just admitting that we want to be buddies with places with these awful records. Look, it's at the level of symbol, but symbols matter. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, I take your point. So I'm going to help your point here. I think I might be able to help your point, but if I can't, I'll shift gears. I'll correct myself in the middle of my sentence. But one thing that I've heard you say repeatedly with regard to Russia and the problem with Donald Trump signaling that he's willing to have a good relationship with this ethno-nationalist right winger, human rights violator, is really the reality that Donald Trump's coalition is really in lockstep with that line of thinking anyway. Right, 100%. Right.
And that does not help his case whatsoever when his loyal legion of the alt-right, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, outside of their nationalism, they would love Vladimir Putin. They would love the things that he does. They love this rightward shift that we're seeing on the global stage. And that in itself is very problematic. Over and above, like, it's not like the alt-right neo-Nazis are falling in line with Wahhabism.
No.
You know what I mean?
Right.
They have a very specific worldview that sees anything from Islam as the great devil. And so they have this affinity towards Vladimir Putin's worldview. And so from that perspective, that would be where I can agree with you that is a problem over and above any virtue signaling saying that we don't deal with autocrats. Well, America does deal with autocrats, but now we're dealing with Marine Le Pen. We're dealing with Nigel Farage, the Brexit contingent. Yeah. We're dealing with all these people on the international stage that have a coalescing singular worldview that is ethno-nationalist, that is, there's so many ways to describe it, and to have our sitting president be okay with that. Yeah.
And you're focusing in on Islamophobia. I mean, we got this guy right behind us,
exactly.
Right? We've got this weird sort of a group which is very friendly to America, Russia, and Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. And all what do they have in common really is that, well, with Trump as president, it's this Islamophobia, right?
Yeah.
That is the sort of the tie that binds. Right, and there's something about
let's be the ties that bind.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary fact. And so, look, when you bring Russia up, I see that as part of that contingent. But to get back to this, I mean, the thing that's wrong with Michael Flynn is not the headline in my head for what's wrong with this guy is very unlikely to become something regarding email hacking to me.
Yeah.
Right. It has to do with spreading ridiculous, awful lies about Muslims. It has to do with tweeting retweeting awful anti-Semitic tweets. Right. These kinds of things. And I want to headline that Islamophobia because that's he's a professional Islamophobe.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
that's awesome. Yeah, that's an awesome way to put it. A professional Islamophobe.
You tie that into the Russia thing, and those do go together.
Yeah.
And then they kind of backs out into the alt-right.
Yeah. No. I mean, from that perspective, absolutely. And again, I mean, I think it's worth reiterating. It's not. There is absolutely no problem with the American president seeking to have good relationships with potentially hostile foreign leaders.
It has to be done.
We would
I
want
agree
that.
Has to be done.
We want that. We would want that. We should want that with any foreign leader. If we could have peace, let's have peace. Yeah. However, the president is signaling that there are some values that Vladimir Putin has. And even the things that he's not expressly saying, there is a worldwide coalescing movement of ethno-nationalism that really solidifies and I hate to use alt-right because it's not sufficient enough, but it gives you a good description of where they are, and it's a global movement that is problematic for our sitting president to. Here it is. This is the best example. He will mention every single remote possibility of Islamic terrorism, but will never say anything about white supremacist terrorism domestically or globally, ever. He has yet to say anything about those things, and that is 100% consistent with that type of worldview that is shifting in that direction. And so from that perspective, it is problematic. Not that he's trying to have a good relationship with Russia, because it's actually more than that. He's not just trying to have a good relationship with Russia. He's trying to pacify the people who have this type of worldview.
I'm glad we sorted that out. I think that is it. Right, we all know that behind closed doors there's going to be deals made with people who are
horrible people,
are awful. Right, I mean, most leaders are awful. Right, one of the ways that you become a leader is
being horrible,
to be awful. Right, so you're not going to be able to run a country without dealing with awful people. It doesn't mean that you have to praise them. It doesn't mean you have to signal to your
their values.
Yeah, to your people that you agree with them in fundamental ways. You might agree on how to deal with a particular security issue, but disagree on everything else.
Right.
And that's what you want to give the impression of, right? So when Obama is necessarily friendly with Saudi Arabia, right? He wants to cue that and we can disagree whether he's right, but that our security interests are in line. But he doesn't want to cue. He doesn't want to send out the idea that he agrees with the impression.
And this is why he will simultaneously criticize why he's in their nation, right? Yeah. When he went to Kenya. Right, he spoke of trying to have a positive relationship and to be there, and his presence there was everything. But then he also criticized their human rights violations. Yeah. Right, and he did the same. He did the same thing with Saudi Arabia. He'll speak about the human rights violations, but then he'll do what he can to keep the security interest in line. Right. So, is it hypocrisy? Probably. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. But is it? Can you actually walk away and have any question in your mind whether or not your president of the United States, at the time, Barack Obama, had the worldview of Saudi Arabia?
Right.
Never. No. But you can definitely say that Donald Trump has the worldview or portions of the worldview of Vladimir Putin.
Yeah, I mean, basically what you're saying is that consistency is not in and of itself a virtue.
Right? Not when you're the president of the United States.
Yeah.
I think
teaching Sunday school, it might be.
Yeah.
But if being inconsistent with regards to Kenya, for example, where on the one hand you're be nice about things because you think there's value there, but on the other hand you're gonna slap them on the wrist. It seems sort of inconsistent, right? It's not. I mean, for all of the sort of foreign policy questionable decisions that Obama made, he was very pragmatist about it, right? He really did look at it as a series of problems to be solved. He did not let one ideology overrun things. Anyway, so that's where you see this sort of inconsistency. Yeah. It can look weak if you're sort of a feeble-minded person, right? Which is, I think, the kind of person Trump is. He would see that and say, "Oh, that's weak."
Yeah,
it's not weak in this instance, right? It's how you have to operate, and it's better to get it half right on a moral level than not at all.
Well, so here's the other option, right? Here's the option, and I'll posit this or suggest this rather for progressives. If your value, and I won't call it virtue signaling, but if your standards are such that we should have no relationship with people who commit human rights violations.
Be lonely.
Not only would we be lonely, but we'd be in consistent war. We'd be in consistent conflict with these nations. So if we're okay, here's a level of hypocrisy that we can expose real quick. If we're okay with having positive relationships with Russia, if you're okay with that, then you have to be okay with having positive relationships. I mean, if you do apples to apples, I mean, human rights violations galore, you have to be okay with this relationship that I'm sick of with Saudi Arabia, right? But we see that it's kind of like we cherry pick which relationships the United States president has and the United States government has and decide that this is the one that we're going to criticize right now and ignore the other one.
And it's clear that there's a partisan motivation to hone in on this one, right?
There it is. Yep.
There's no way around that fact.
There's no way.
Right. There's no way around that fact. And you can't focus on everything, but there's a reason we're focusing on.
You said something about let's shift gears and talk about Nunes because you said something about having a feeble intellect.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Devon Nunes.
Yeah.
I mean, we're at the point where he's an idiot.
Yeah. So can you? I've tried to follow this story, right? And what actually happened seems fairly easy to follow, and that he's just he's trying to investigate while also being on the side of the person he's investigating.
Exactly.
That's pretty clear. But what is? Can you? Give me your version
I'll
of the
give
story.
You. So as I see it, so obviously was it last week or the week before? He made this announcement at the White House saying that he's
at the White House.
Literally at the White House, that he had new information that that Donald Trump turned around and said vindicates him, and that and this information that he did not take it to his investigative committee, right? But he allegedly shared it with the White House. Now it's turning out that he didn't share it with the White House. The White House gave it to him.
Right.
Which and now not only one, not two, but three White House officials are reported to have given him the very same information that he came out and said that he went to meet with some anonymous source that he wanted to protect. This is like a cluster F of stupidity.
Yeah, no, you hate to just go to this guy is dumb.
Yeah,
but it does not.
It's not bright. He's not bright.
He's not bright. He can't. He's not. He can't keep his story straight, and and again, I admit I don't fully follow. He's changing cars.
I'll give you some of the notes from. So
he doesn't know that everybody's watching. I mean, this is worse than James Comey not being able to hide his Twitter account.
This is insane. So this is from the New York Times. It all goes back to March 21st when Nunes allegedly got a call from a source, and he was in an Uber at the time.
Right.
And once he got a call from the Uber, he promptly, according to the New York Times, quote, promptly diverted it to the White House. And then the next day he gave that news conference that everyone knows. Right. It turns out since disclosing that, that he's been refusing to divulge the identity. But it turns out the reason he's not divulging the identity is not to protect the sources, so much as for it not to be revealed that the sources are actually the people he's supposed to be investigating.
So it's to protect himself.
It's to protect himself.
Right.
And so, according to New York Times, they have the names of the actual White House spokespeople or the White House staffers who were involved in this, officials. Ezra Cohen, the senior director for intelligence of the National Security Council, Michael Ellis, who's a lawyer who works on the national security issues at the White House. And then since the show started, I saw a pop-up that there's actually actual third official that he met with. And so all of this information that he started floating out to the nation that he would not share with his investigative committee actually is being fed to him by the White House. And he's forwarding it as though it's evidence to support the White House.
The evidence that he's found.
That he's found from an like a journalist. And here's the thing.
What would the source be otherwise?
Why would they be at the White House?
Yeah, right, exactly. Right.
Like, how dumb are we? Like, how dumb does he think we are to think that that a person who's not working at the White House needs to meet him at the White House to give him this information?
You've seen All the President's Men?
Yes. Yeah.
They don't meet in the White House.
Yeah,
right?
they meet in the garage.
Yeah, right. They meet for obvious reasons because there's not a million reporters in the random garage. Right. The idea that he would do this in the most covered acre on Earth,
the planet.
I I mean,
how many Russian spy satellites are focused?
Everything's focused there. I mean, I don't know. It's dumbfounding. Look, it does not take a genius to get elected to Congress, right? There's obviously other things that can get you there. You would hope that becoming the head of this committee,
House Intelligence Committee. Come on, like
this is the best.
This is the best the Republicans had to offer, and it's mind-numbingly stupid that he got himself into this type of situation. When loyalty, you have to be loyal to yourself first. Like he's trying to be loyal to Donald Trump, and he's ruined his career. Like there's really nothing else for him to do after this.
The fact that we know his name is a bad thing for him.
Yeah,
right. I mean, it's this. I'm sure he was well liked in whatever
district.
Awful little. I mean, you see that CA, and your brain thinks San Diego.
Yeah,
but California's a big place, right? And I can't imagine that he's from a major metropolis out there. I don't know. It's hard to be. I find it hard to have much intelligent to say about this particular story. It seems like a bumbling person performing a just truly terrible job at what he's been assigned.
Yeah.
Right. And it combined with sort of obvious hack partisanship.
Yeah.
It's the worst you could draw it up, right? At least be good if you're going to be corrupt.
Even in the original context of what he was trying to say. Originally, he was trying to say that he met with a source at the White House who says that the Trump administration was definitely underneath surveillance, right? Even in that context, his unwillingness to share that information with his committee shows the level of political shilling that he was doing.
Well, or it shows it doesn't exist.
Well, that too.
I mean, like,
that too.
It
doesn't exist in a form. It doesn't exist in a form that he's willing to actually go public with.
At least, right.
Except for the news cycle.
It could be very, very flimsy. One suspects he's not making it up entirely.
Right.
Right. But he's doing his own interpretation and shielding it from the interpretation of others. And this day and age, we do expect more open source evidence than in the past, which is one good thing about the rise of new media. This comes off as particularly flaccid in this current context.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and I would love to see where this goes from here, because at this point, I don't know how he maintains his chairmanship, let alone his seat in the 2018 race. He almost needs to just walk away.
Well, yeah, and you have to be challenged to lose, right? And I guess I don't know. I California 21st. Don't quote me. I don't know. Who knows what the politics are there? Whether or not he is really challengeable, but one would think that leadership roles are it's the end of that one.
Yeah.
Right?
Speaking of challenges, Donald Trump. I don't know if this is a brilliant move or asinine. It's amazing. Donald Trump has declared war on the Freedom Caucus via Twitter this morning. Let's share those tweets. You'll see them on your screen. He calls out the one on the bottom right is the first tweet. The Freedom Caucus will hurt the entire Republican agenda if they don't get on the team and fast. We must fight them and Dems in 2018. Top left-hand side, if Representative Mark Meadows, Jim Jordan, and Raul Labrador, hell of a name, would get on board, we would have both great health care and massive tax cuts and reform. So he's calling out individual members of the Freedom Caucus. He is almost ensuring that he will not be able to get a Republican majority in the Congress for any of his agenda, because you can't spit in the face of your ostensible allies and expect them to fall in line when you need them.
Yeah, no, and now speaking of consistency, right? Trump has the thing that he has done over and over again, and I would argue that there's been specific circumstances that have allowed this, but the thing he has done is consistently not broadened his appeal. Right? So we, during the primary race, he was like this little narrow lane of people. And everybody said he was going to have to broaden out. He just never did, and things sort of fell by him. And you get to the general election. You say, okay, now he's going to have to open. Doesn't at all.
Isolated, alienated.
No effort to expand, right? The question is this where the buck stops? Because an institution such as Congress, well, we know how many people vote in Congress, right? When it comes to a general election, that can be,
it can fluctuate, right?
You can just turn everybody off and reduce the total number, and then a smaller number can win. if off the top of my head analysis, this is just what he knows how to do. He has been, it's Pavlovian, right? When he sees a problem, right, his initial reaction is, okay, divide, right? Like, find my people, strengthen their resolve in me, and just let everybody else go by the wayside. But eventually, you don't end up with enough votes to pass anything.
Right, exactly.
Does he need to pass things to if all he wants is to stay in office and to win re-election, does he have to pass things?
That's a great question. My gut reaction is to say, yeah, he has to do something.
I know.
However, we're at almost day 70, and he has not done anything outside of executive orders, many of which have caved underneath their own pressure. It's very likely that he'll go 100 days and not get a single meaningful piece of legislation passed through Congress, especially now that he's picking a fight with his own team.
Seems certain at this point.
Yeah, like certain. We're almost out of time for him to get something done in this 100 days.
Significant, that just seems impossible. A watered down, like, rush through of something with healthcare, if they want to go to a plan B, or they could, but he's not going to do that.
Yeah, I don't think this is the only reason I actually have any fondness of the relentless nature of the Russia narrative. It's because Donald Trump is going to make 100 days and not have any legislation done, anything significant done, versus what we all compare the 100-day mark to FDR. Sure. Right. Donald Trump is going to get out of this 100 days and have nothing meaningful done. Here's where I don't know I don't know the answer to your question of whether or not he has to get something done to get reelected, because even at day like 65, whatever day we're in now, his followers, the people who love him, think he's the greatest thing that has ever happened to America. And they engage in relentless special pleading that no matter what happens, it's not Donald Trump's fault. And so his supporters who got him there, I don't know if they're able to get him there again, but he doesn't have to pass anything for them.
No, right. He just has to keep them as an electoral majority.
Yep.
Right. There was a poll recently that said 3% of Trump voters regret, and who knows? These polls are look at them with a grain of salt. But there is not widespread disgust amongst his supporters. And if you just grant that he has no real ideology, then all he is a machine that self-perpetuates. Right, not for any purpose, right? Just that's what he does.
That's amazing.
Then it might well be the case
that's who he is.
That maybe if all you want to do is keep going, it might be better, in fact, to just get nothing done. Because when you get things done, you're then accountable for those things, right? They can go wrong. I mean, if this healthcare had passed,
that would have been.
Then he would have to deal with the fallout of it, right? If just nothing happens, and you don't want to do anything. If your goal is just to keep going, this strategy doesn't seem crazy to me.
All right, folks, we are out of time. We're going to do. You have time for a bonus show? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk about this real quick.
Very quickly. I bring it every time I come on, just because that's the last thing that I put out there. I've got a book. It's called The Other Air Force. You can find it on Amazon. It is a study that I did working in the West Bank, the Palestinian territories, and in Afghanistan, looking at the kinds of media that America funds in order to try to improve in various ways, right? Both sometimes seeming somewhat nefarious, sometimes very honestly.
Let me help you. Yeah. Look at that camera, the last camera. Look into that right there.
This one?
That one. Look at that one. Tell them to buy your book, why they need to buy your book.
So this is a book. It's called The Other Air Force on Amazon. It is, I've already said that now. It's about, it's a study that I did living in the West Bank, the Palestinian territories, and visiting Kabul, Afghanistan for a period of time. It looks at American-funded media in the Middle East. So if you read the book, you meet these characters who are working with American funding. Sometimes they're following orders. Sometimes they're going directly against those orders. There's resistance. There's hegemony, sort of playing back and forth. Last time we came on, we did a giveaway.
Yeah.
We could do one more.
Yeah, we could do one more. Actually, who was the second person?
I sent them both last time. So Ben can Ben will send this
I'll
one
provide
out.
the one. I still have the one.
Yeah. So you still got the book. So if you're interested, check it out on Amazon. If you would like a chance to win a free copy, let's just do the same thing we did last time. Follow me at Media Studied. And all new followers starting from now until tomorrow this time, we'll put in a random drawing and we'll give away the book.
All right. Sounds good. So follow him at Media Study. Thanks for hanging out. Can you stay for like 10, 15 minutes more? Sure. And we'll do a bonus show. We're going to talk about a couple of crazy stories, but the one story I want to talk about is the need that we're going to have a need for 20 new antibiotics by 2020. And it doesn't look like we're going to get there. So the implications of that, we're going to talk about that and a couple of other things. You should become a patron so you can get access to all the bonus shows. Max is going to join us for the bonus show. That's it for tonight. We're already over time. See you guys on Monday. And by guys, I mean everyone.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.